What if you pressed the reset button and nothing changed? Stop for a second and really think about this. We grew up believing that there's always a second chance, a fresh start, a way to go back and fix everything. In games, in technology, even in life, there's this idea that if something goes wrong, you just restart. But what if there was a place where the reset simply doesn't work, where each mistake remains there, accumulating, distorting reality little by little? Imagine being trapped in an environment that seems familiar, but gradually begins to malfunction. Small glitches appear in the corners of your vision, objects change places without explanation, sounds repeat strangely, as if time itself were broken. You try to ignore it at first, as anyone would. After all, it must just be your imagination, right? But then you realize something even more disturbing. You've lived that moment before, only differently. Have you ever experienced this? That strange feeling of déjà vu, only more intense. Almost as if reality were tearing apart around you. Now imagine that, upon realizing this, you try to solve it in the most logical way possible. You restart, you go back, redo, try to change your choices, but this time, it doesn't work. The mistake is still there. Worse still, it changes form, it grows. It blends in with what was already correct. In this place, time is not linear. It bends, fragments, repeats itself in unpredictable ways. Each attempt to correct something creates a new layer of reality, an overlay of events that shouldn't coexist. It's as if you were living several versions of the same moment at the same time, and none of them were entirely real. And the more you try to fix it, the more everything becomes unstable. What you're about to discover might surprise you, because this isn't just an abstract idea or a random fictional concept. This type of narrative, full of paradoxes, broken time, and glitches of reality, directly affects how we understand the world. It plays with our perception, our memory, and even our identity. Think about it. If you can't trust time, if every attempt to start over only makes things worse, then what is real? And more importantly, what can still be saved? Stay with me until the end, because what starts as a simple mistake can quickly turn into something much bigger. An error that can't be erased, a cycle that can't be broken, a place where every choice leaves a permanent mark, even when you try to pretend it never existed. And perhaps the scariest thing of all isn't the fact that you're trapped, but rather realizing that, deep down, you've always been there, you just never noticed. Now, before everything gets completely out of control, there's one thing you need to understand. Honor. Because, deep down, there's a pattern behind all of this. A pattern that almost no one notices until it's too late. And it is precisely here that things start to get even more unsettling. Because perhaps you have already felt something similar, even without realizing it. That feeling of repeating a mistake, of trying to fix something and ending up making it worse. As if, somehow, reality were responding to your choices in an unpredictable way. Not exactly broken, but misaligned. And I really want to know from you, has this ever happened to you on some level? It might not be something literal, like a visible glitch or a time loop, but that feeling of being stuck in a cycle, of trying to reset a situation and realizing that something is still out of place. Kind of wrong, kind of incomplete. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below describing what has resonated with you the most so far. It could be an experience, a strange feeling, or even your own theory about all of this. Sometimes, sharing your thoughts helps more than it seems. And you might end up opening the mind of someone who is silently going through the same thing. And if you enjoy this type of content, which mixes mystery, psychological animation, paradoxes, and ideas that make us question reality itself, go ahead and leave a like. It seems simple, but it shows that this type of story deserves to continue being explored. And it helps the video reach more people who are also looking for something beyond the ordinary. And of course, if you want to continue exploring these concepts, delving into stories that play with perception, with time, and with the very logic of reality, subscribe to the channel. Because your participation here isn't just a number, it's what makes this type of content continue to exist, grow, and reach more people who might be trying to understand exactly the same things as you. Because the more we share these ideas, the more we realize that maybe we're not alone in this. And that's precisely where everything starts to connect in a way you wouldn't expect. Destroyed? Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because what seems like just a strange glitch may actually be the beginning of a much bigger transformation. One that completely changes how you view your decisions, your own mind, and even the idea of control. This place where resetting doesn't work isn't just a physical space or an isolated dimension. It's a system, an invisible mechanism that reacts to every choice, every attempt to correct the past. Here, unlike anything you've ever seen, nothing is truly erased. Every action leaves a trace, a kind of echo that continues to exist in the background of reality, even when you believe you've moved on. And that's where the real impact begins. Because, in that environment, time doesn't flow. It accumulates, as if each moment were piled on top of the other, creating a kind of continuous distortion. You make a decision thinking you're moving forward, but in reality you're just adding another layer to something that was never truly resolved. This changes everything. It changes how you react, how you think, how you feel, And perhaps the hidden truth here is even more uncomfortable. What if the problem was never the mistake itself, but rather the constant need to try to erase it? Think about it for a moment. How many times, in your own journey, have you tried to restart something? A choice, a phase, a version of yourself, believing you could start from scratch. But what if, deep down, all of that was still there, silently influencing who you are now? In this place it becomes visible. The flaws appear, the glitches reveal what was hidden, and what once seemed like control begins to show itself as an illusion constructed by our own mindset. And the more you try to regain that control, the more you realize you're dealing with something that doesn't follow common rules. Something that can't simply be fixed, only understood. Comment below, does this make sense for me? Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because the first sign that something is wrong never comes in an obvious way. It appears subtly, almost imperceptibly, like a detail out of place that your mind tries to automatically correct. An object you swore you left somewhere else. A phrase someone says, exactly like something that has been said before. And it's not just similar, it's identical. At first, you ignore it. It makes sense. After all, our minds are trained to seek logic, to keep everything coherent. But this is the point where reality begins to slip away in the details. Small flaws that shouldn't exist start to repeat themselves, as if something were behind the scenes trying to rebuild everything, but making mistakes in specific parts. And this creates a strange impact. It's not immediate fear, it's doubt, because you start questioning your own decisions. Did you really do that? Has that ever happened before? Or is it just your imagination? And the more you try to rationalize, the more these flaws seem to gain strength, as if your attempt to understand is actually fueling the problem. The hidden truth here is that the mistake doesn't reveal itself all at once. It infiltrates. It grows silently, accompanying every step of your journey, waiting for the moment when you can no longer ignore it. And when that moment arrives, it's no longer a detail. It's a pattern. You realize it's not just an isolated event. It's a cycle beginning to form. And perhaps the most unsettling thing is this. Deep down, a part of you recognizes this pattern even before you can explain it, as if you've been through it before, but without remembering when. Write this down. I've already felt it. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when this pattern starts to repeat itself, it doesn't stop, it evolves. What were once small, almost negligible flaws now take shape, presence, intention. The glitches cease to be details and begin to directly interfere with your experience. Sounds start to echo out of time. Movements seem slightly delayed, and some scenes simply no longer fit the logic you knew. It's as if reality is trying to remain stable, but slowly failing. And that completely changes your perception, because you can no longer pretend it's a coincidence. Something is happening behind the scenes, something that responds to your decisions in a distorted way, almost like a broken reflection. And the more attention you pay, the more things emerge. An object appears where it shouldn't. A door that once led to one place now leads to another. A memory that seemed clear begins to mix with another version of itself. This generates a kind of silent psychological impact because you begin to doubt not only the environment, but yourself. And here comes a crucial point in this journey. Your mindset begins to change. You stop trusting what you see and start questioning everything. Each choice carries a different weight now, because there is no guarantee of results. Each action can generate a new distortion, a new layer in this system that seems to be expanding uncontrollably. The hidden truth is that the mystery lies not only in what is happening, but in why all of this is reacting specifically to you. And when that realization begins to form, a feeling arises that is difficult to ignore. Perhaps you are not just inside this place. Perhaps you are part of what is causing all of this. Write this down. Something's not right. Right now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this is where everything turns upside down. Until now, it seemed that the problem lay in the flaws, the glitches, the distortions of reality. But the real paradox begins when you realize that each attempt to correct this only makes everything worse. It's almost counterintuitive. Your first reaction is to act, to make decisions, to try to regain control. It makes sense. It's part of our mindset to seek solutions. But in this place, each choice doesn't solve anything, it accumulates. Each attempt to reset doesn't erase the previous mistake. It creates a new version of it. And it is at this point that the impact becomes inevitable. You begin to notice that multiple layers of the same situation coexist. Small variations of what has already happened, superimposed on one another, as if time were being rewritten, without ever erasing what came before. This generates a kind of overload in reality itself, an excess of possibilities that shouldn't exist at the same time. And then comes the most uncomfortable revelation. The problem isn't the initial mistake, it's the insistence on trying to correct something that is no longer linear. Because every decision now carries a different weight. There is no longer such a thing as trying again without consequence. Each action amplifies the chaos, further distorts the scenario, alters the logic of cause and effect, and the more you insist, the further you get from any stable version of reality. This completely changes your journey. Because it's no longer about finding the right choice, but about understanding what it means to choose when all options are already compromised. And perhaps the hidden truth is this: you were never trying to fix reality. You were multiplying it. Write this down: it's impossible to return. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because to understand what's happening, you need to see the logic behind this system, and it's very different from anything you've ever considered reality. Here, the reset doesn't fail by accident. It was never meant to erase. It was meant to accumulate. It works almost like a file that is never overwritten. Each decision, each attempt, each version of the same moment continues to exist in the background, occupying space, generating interference. That's why glitches appear. They are not random errors. They are signs of overload. They are fragments of other versions of the same reality trying to coexist at the same time. And that completely changes how you view the impact of your choices. Because in this system, there is no single timeline. There is a constant overlap of possibilities, all active, all influencing the present. Your mindset, which previously sought control and correction, begins to realize that each new decision does not replace the previous one. It adds to it. And the more layers you create, the more unstable everything becomes. It's as if reality itself is trying to process too much information, never managing to organize it all coherently. Sounds repeat because they've happened before. Scenarios change because multiple versions of them exist. Sensations mix because you've already experienced them. In different ways, the hidden truth here is that the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. It's just that this logic wasn't made to be easily understood. And perhaps the most unsettling thing is realizing that you're not just inside this mechanism. You're feeding it with every choice you make. And when this realization begins to make sense, a new question arises. If nothing is erased, then what is truly guiding what you are experiencing now? Comment below. Everything accumulates. With you now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because once you understand this logic, the real impact is no longer in the reality around you, it's within you. The transformation begins in your mind. What was once certainty becomes doubt. What seemed like control becomes anxiety. And, little by little, you no longer trust even your own thoughts. Because how can you trust something that may have been repeated, altered, or superimposed? This is the point where your psyche begins to crumble. Not dramatically at first, but silently, almost imperceptibly. You start to question your memories, your decisions, your own journey. Did it really happen that way? Or is it just another version among many? This constant doubt generates profound exhaustion because your mind tries to organize something that cannot be organized. And the more you try to find a fixed truth, the more it eludes you. This creates a type of internal conflict that's difficult to explain. A feeling of being divided between versions of yourself, as if every choice you've made is still alive, influencing who you are now. And this completely changes your mindset, because there is no longer a stable identity, only fragments that blend together. The hidden truth here is that the biggest glitch isn't in the environment, it's in the perception. And when you realize this, everything takes on a new weight. Every thought, every reaction, every decision begins to carry a silent doubt. Is this really mine, or is it the result of everything that has accumulated? And at this point in the journey, the scariest thing is no longer what's happening outside. It's the possibility that you might no longer be able to recognize yourself on the inside. Comment below, who am I in this? So, now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because there comes a point in this journey where everything you believed in simply crumbles. It's no longer about understanding the system, nor about dealing with its effects. It's about facing a revelation that completely changes the game. And it comes in a subtle way, but impossible to ignore. You begin to realize that there is no true before, that the idea that everything started at some point may be nothing more than a construct, as if you never really entered that place because, somehow, you've always been there. That completely breaks the logic, because if there wasn't a clear beginning, then there's no going back. There's no safe point to return to. Everything you've experienced, all the decisions, all the resets, are part of a cycle that was already underway long before you realized it. And this is where the hidden truth begins to reveal itself more forcefully. Perhaps the reset was never a tool, but rather an illusion created to give you the feeling of control. Think about it. What if each attempt to start over wasn't your choice, but part of the system itself keeping itself active? What if this need to correct, to go back, to try again, was exactly what keeps everything functioning? This completely changes your mindset, because it stops being a journey of correction and becomes a journey of awareness. You begin to see behind the scenes of everything, to perceive patterns that were previously hidden, to connect revelations that never made sense until now. And the more you understand, the more uncomfortable it becomes, because the question stops being, how do I get out of this? And becomes something much deeper. Do I really want to get out, or am I just following the cycle as I always have? And when that doubt arises, it doesn't go away. Write this down. I've always been there. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because there's a point in this journey where you can no longer ignore it. You can no longer try to adjust it. you can no longer pretend there's a simple way out. It's the moment when everything converges. All the decisions, all the attempts to reset, all the accumulated layers reach their limit, and when that happens, something changes permanently. You realize that any new choice doesn't create a solution, it accelerates the collapse. Reality can no longer sustain so many overlapping versions. Glitches cease to be distortions and become ruptures. Entire parts begin to fail, as if the system itself were reaching a critical point. This is the real impact of the point of no return, because now it's no longer about understanding or controlling. It's about facing it, about accepting that everything that has been done up to this point has built up to this very moment, and that there is no more room for correction, only consequence. Your mindset is forced to change again, not by choice, but by necessity. You begin to realize that insisting on the same pattern, trying to correct it, trying to go back, trying to rewrite it tonally, fuels this collapse even more. And, at the same time, stopping seems impossible, because everything you know has been built upon this logic. And that's where the most difficult decision of this entire journey comes in. Keep trying, even knowing that it destroys the structure even more. Or stop and face everything that has already been created, without filters, without illusions, without a reset. The hidden truth here is that this point has always been waiting for you. Every choice has brought you here. Every attempt has brought you closer to this limit. And now that you've arrived, there's no pretending you don't know anymore. Write this down. I got to the point where who. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because after this point, there is no longer a clear answer, only interpretation. And this is where everything becomes much more personal than it seems. It's no longer about the place, the broken time, or the glitches. It's about what you do with all of that. Because, in the end, the reality you are living now is a direct result of everything that has accumulated. Every decision, every attempt to correct things, every moment you thought you were starting over. All of that built exactly the scenario in which you find yourself. And this brings about an inevitable reflection. If there's no reset, then every choice matters more than you imagined. There's no "I'll deal with it later." There's no "I'll go back and do it differently." There's only the now, being shaped by everything that came before. And that completely changes how you see your own journey. The hidden truth here is not about escaping this system, but about understanding the real impact of being inside it. Because perhaps the mistake was never about failing, but about believing that the failure could be erased. And when that realization sets in, something truly changes. Not on the outside, but on the inside. Your mindset begins to reorganize. Your decisions take on a different weight, and the idea of control ceases to be about correcting, and becomes about taking responsibility. Acknowledge what has already been done. Acknowledge what can still be done. Acknowledge that, even without a reset, there is still choice, but now with awareness. And it is precisely at this point that everything takes on a new meaning. Because perhaps what seemed like a dead end is, in fact, the beginning of something you haven't fully grasped yet. Comment below. My choice is Fico. And if you've made it this far, you may have already realized that this wasn't just another story. It was almost like looking inside something we normally avoid confronting. And that's exactly why it makes sense to continue exploring this kind of idea. If this type of content makes you think differently, question more, and see beyond the obvious, subscribe to the channel, because that's how you continue to follow these reflections and delve deeper into this type of narrative that mixes perception, mindset, and those truths that aren't always so clear at first glance. And if at any point in this video something resonated with you, leave a like. Not as an obligation, but as a sign that this connection happened, that this journey made sense to you in some way. Now, I really want to know. If you stayed until the end, comment here. This message was for me, just so I know who really went all the way with this idea. And there's a video over here that perfectly complements everything we've started exploring now. Click on it and continue with me there, because this journey still has a lot to reveal.